Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Giri. Oh, no shoes. Sorry. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Pradjana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Pradjana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of December 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 9 entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, and we're on text 22 on page 402 in most of your books. Looks like all of your books. Just one note. You may wonder why we don't have the heat on. And the reason why we don't have the heat on is because it makes a lot of noise up front. And Vijay takes rest at 7:15. And he came down and turned it off. So just to wrap up for these classes, he'll be going on a world tour in early January. So at that point, early January, I think, after the marathon. Huh? No. He has this long time creating that room, perfect room up there. Yeah, that was all created before we had the heat. When Joseph is not here, he lives next door. It's even quieter. He's off the road and everything, you know. But anyway, Joseph finally came in out of the cold Colorado mountains and decided he wanted to take advantage of his apartment. Okay, so we're on the text 22. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana payupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana payupasate teshang nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana payupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana payupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Pajamna. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana payupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Go ahead. No? Go ahead, Ross. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana payupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Vrindavan. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana payupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Anyone else? Ananya, having no other object. Chintayantaha, concentrating. Mam, on me. Ye, those who. Janaha, persons. Payupasate, properly worship. Tesham, of them. Nitya, always. Abhiyuktanam, fixed in devotion. Yoga, requirements. Kshemam, protection. Vahami, carry. Aham, I. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Purport. One who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours a day, being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious and full of spiritual potencies, which make the devotee perfect in self-realization, so that his only desire is to achieve the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a devotee undoubtedly approaches the Lord without difficulty. This is called yoga. By the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. Kshema refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The Lord helps the devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga, and when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable, conditioned life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, as always, it is important to see the verse in context. And if you recall, the last two verses, Krishna gave a very concise but convincing argument why it's not very intelligent to worship the demigods with the aim of going to the heavenly planets. There are those who do that, Trividyamam, those who are the Trivedis. You remember the Trivedis, they're expert in the instructions of these Sama, Yajur, and Rig Veda, which have a lot of description of different sacrifices and prayers and things to go to the heavenly planets, such as Indraloka, where you can enjoy godly delights. But then he says in the next verse, after some time enjoying this Vishala, Bhuktva Svarga Lokam Vishala. Vishala means very broad and varied and very long enjoyments. Chine Punye Mati Lokam Vishanti. Your punya credits are exhausted, and you have to come back down to this earth. You don't go to hell, but you come to this earth. And again, you're confronted with birth, old age, disease, and death, and all the difficulties that adhere to it. So you really haven't made any progress. You haven't made any progress back to Godhead. So better than that, much more logical, is to become a devotee of Krishna. And here it says, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam. This is called about the pure devotees, means no other thoughts. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam. Those who worship me in that mood, who are always linked up to me, Nityabhyukta Nam, and Prabhupada expands on that. He gives the 9 processes of devotional service, enunciated by Prahlad Maharaj, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, etc. Then Krishna provides protection. The first thing is this Chema, Yoga and Chema. These are the things we need to live. Yoga is all the necessities of life in this context. And Chema is your security. If you have nice, you have plenty of food and heat and electricity and a nice house, but there's an army coming over the hills, something that's going to conquer you, you're not happy. You need security, and you need the things you need to live. So both of that. And Krishna says, I personally carry them. Now there's a story, I forget all the details, about one scholar who just could not believe this, that Krishna, well, this means I carry them, I provide them. He doesn't even assign it to someone else, He says that can't be right, and he did some editing. That's how dangerous it is to be an editor. On the Bhagavad Gita. And so he was a householder, and he went out to bathe or something, and his wife was home, and then 2 beautiful young boys came knocking at the door. And they were Krishna and Balaram. And they were all scratched up. And they said, yes, your husband has done this to us. And they were carrying something, I forget what, but when she was very upset to see that. When he came home, she said, why have you, scratched Krishna and Balaram? He said, well, I didn't do anything like that. But what he did was, he had doubt about the truth of this verse, that Krishna would personally carry. And so he made some editing in the Sanskrit here, and so that's, in other words, we shouldn't doubt it. This is one of the processes of surrender. They said there'd be 6. The 6 Sharanagati verse. It says, Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya bharjanam, rakshishyatiti vishwaso, goptvet vevaranang tata, atmaniksepa karpanye, shadbadha sharanagati. So the first one, and this is such a logical, verse describing really the first 2, anything you want to achieve. If you want to become a successful businessman, or a musician or artist or whatever, there's a dharma for it. There's a process to do that. You have to find a teacher. And I remember when I first wanted to learn how to play the flute. In those days, my flute lessons were, I think, $2.50 an hour. This is back in the 70s, mid-70s. And she showed me, no, you have to blow it like this. Hold it, it's called the embouchure. This comes in very handy, by the way. It came in very handy when I had to try to blow my first conch shell. Because that's what it's all about. It's directing the stream of the air so that it's, So, anyway, there was, I had been playing around with the flute, but to really officially learn it, hold it this way, hold it, directly. And gradually you get the habits of doing the right habits, and you learn a skill. So that's a process, and if you want any skill, material or spiritual, there is a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. So anukulyasya sankalpa means accepting those things that are favorable. And pratikulyasya bharjana means rejecting those things that are unfavorable. Now you can see that this fits right into the verse that describes the essence of what Krishna consciousness is. What is it? Satatam? No. Smartavyak satatam Vishnu, vismartavyo najatuchit. Sarva vidinashedikshur etiyoreva kinkara. Always remember Vishnu, Krishna, and never forget him. All of the do's and don'ts of bhakti serve these two. Sarva vidi nisheda. Vidi in this context means instructions what to do, and nisheda is prohibitions. So it's the proscriptions and prohibitions. That's what a dharma means. Are servants of these two. In other words, we have, of course, chant Hare Krishna. That's certainly a prescription. You have to accept that. The more that you accept the chanting, okay, you chant a certain number of rounds, especially if you take initiation. If you want to progress, you have to accept that fact. And then there's so many other things that we're enjoying not to do, which will make us forget Krishna, right? And so we have to accept all those things. The more we accept, and more enthusiastically we accept the things that will help us remember Krishna, and the more that we're determined to reject those things, we may be habituated to them, but we reject them because they'll help us forget Krishna, or make it harder to remember Krishna, the faster we'll progress. And then the next to Rakshishyatiti Vishwaso means always be confident that Krishna will protect. Now you read the Krishna book. When you read your Krishna book, especially the part that's in Vrindavan Leela, and you'll see that this, we're sitting here in the Govardhan. I mean, this is a perfect example. When the great threat of the inundation came from Indra, who went crazy because he was dishonored, insulted. He's inundating the whole land of Vrindavan, intending to kill everyone with the flood. It says it became so dangerous you couldn't tell high land from low. So what does that mean? It means it's flooding so much that the hills are obscure. So what did they do? They said, "Oh, we got to get out of here." No, they didn't say that. They call on Krishna, "Please save us. You're our only hope." That's Rakshishyati Vishwaso, having full confidence that Krishna will protect in the ultimate issue. And of course he did, and he does. And then at the same time, that's the Chema. And then Gopta Dvevadanantata means full confidence that Krishna will maintain. That's providing the necessities of life. So the Vrijbasis perfectly exemplify that, that Krishna will maintain and Krishna will protect. They have full confidence. So they're fully surrendered. And then Atmanikshepa Karpanya means always be meek and humble and have no interest other than serving Krishna. So here you have that illustration of what do you need? What do you need to worship the demigods and go through all these sacrifices and all this austerity and tapasya to get to the heavenly planets? Because the demigods themselves are dependent on Krishna for giving you anything. In other words, why go to the, if you have access to the supreme boss who owns the business, why mess around with the clerk and try to get some good deal from him? Go straight to the top. That's the whole idea. So that's what Krishna is saying. Is that, and the result of this is that in the process of sadhana, Krishna will protect and maintain, and the end goal is way beyond these heavenly planets. You don't come back. If you go to the heavenly planets, you may enjoy, for a long time, extraordinary sense pleasures, but the clock is ticking. You're not in a spiritual body; it's still a material body. It just and eventually, as he describes here, you have to give it up. You come back down here. And what a come down that is, after being in heavenly planets, you can imagine. Then you're really fortunate not to remember your previous life, right? So you haven't made any progress, and that's why Krishna says, Gadakatam kama kama labante. Just going and coming, like on a Ferris wheel. So Krishna is constantly bringing everything back in this chapter to how what's really the most confidential knowledge, and that's the title of the chapter, is at the end. Just think of me, become my devotee, worship me, bow down to me. You'll come to me, and you won't have to leave. That'll be your permanent position with me in the spiritual world, Satchidananda. So, in other words, it's all coming back down to what we know is the truth, is that the real value of human life is engaging purifying the senses, purifying the mind, the intelligence, everything we have by connecting them to Krishna, and then in the end leaving this material world entirely and to return home back to Godhead, which should be our aspiration. And at the same time, as we experience the benefits of Krishna consciousness, and we feel we're going to give that benefit to others. And that actually speeds up our return back to Godhead when we try to help others do it. Krishna says, there's no one more dear to me than one who preaches my message. Okay, any questions on this verse? Discussion?
I have a question.
Sure, but wait, we have mics, and that's important because there's an audience out there. We didn't activate the mics? Hare Krishna, Polaris. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. We need a permanent setup, man. Arjun, come 5 minutes earlier. Then you can make sure the mics are out. Sureshwar is sincere, but he's not. You got it? Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll manage with one. It's not that. Thank you, Sureshwar. He even turned it on for you. I'm sorry?
I said if I knew I was going to have to use a mic.
So we're discussing that Krishna is advising against worshipping the demigods to get to the heavenly planets.
Right.
But is there ever an occasion where you can worship the demigods for what you want, other than going to the heavenly planets? Because we see in in Vrindavan Leela, we see the gopis who are the dearmost devotees of Krishna, and they're worshiping the goddess Katyayani. And they're going through all these different austerities about eating just mung dal and rice with no spices and so on and so forth.
And there's a reason why we put Ganapati up in front. He's also there. Maharaj, because before Maharaj did it, he knew that there might be some flack. And so he had pictures of temples, of Gaudiya temples, with that in the front. And in the Nectar of Devotion, it mentions the Ganapati can help clear impediments. To devotional service. So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're not, Srila Prabhupada didn't emphasize that aspect, but it's you can worship, Lord
Srila
Shiva.
Prabhupada said it was okay because their objective was to get Krishna as their husband.
Exactly.
So if we're praying to the demigods to get closer to Krishna.
Everything depends on your motivation.
Yeah.
Everything depends on your motivation. Okay,
In fact, all those gods...
Mike, it's on already, and when you're finished, turn it off.
And in fact, all those gods, they meditate on each other. Like Lord Shiva, he would meditate on Lord Ram, And so there is that level of sweetness among them also. But ultimately, everyone kind of understand that Krishna is the supreme.
Vaishnavanam yata shambhu. That's in the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
And if you worship Shiva in order to get a blessing to serve Krishna better, that's fine, But knowing how Prabhupada presented Krishna consciousness, there isn't much of that we need to do. Yes, the gopis did that, and that's the traditional. All right, let's go on. And then Krishna is again talking about worshiping the devas. Text 23. Ye pyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvita tepi mameva konteya yajant avadipurvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. Purport. Quote, persons who are engaged in the worship of demigods are not very intelligent, although such worship is offered to me indirectly, Krishna says. For example, when a man pours water on the leaves and branches of a tree without pouring water on the root, he does so without sufficient knowledge or without observing regulative principles. Similarly, the process of rendering service to different parts of the body is to supply food to the stomach. The demigods are, so to speak, different officers and directors in the government of the Supreme Lord. One has to follow the laws made by the government, not by the officers or directors. Similarly, everyone is to offer his worship to the Supreme Lord only. That will automatically satisfy the different officers and directors of the Lord. The officers and directors are engaged as representatives of the government, and to offer some bribe to the officers and directors is illegal. This is stated here as avidi purvakam. In other words, Krishna does not approve the unnecessary worship of the demigods. So, it's very clear injunction not to worship the demigods, separate from Krishna for material purposes. Let's put it that way. And this, Prabhupada is really quoting a verse here. Devarshi bhutaptan huinam pratinam. No, I'm sorry. Yata toro mula nishecharena. Tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashaka. Pranopahara chayatendriyanam tataiva sarvahanam achiteja. That sarvahana means sarva is all the demigods, all the others. So he says, just as watering the root of a tree nourishes the branches and the fruits and the flowers on the tree, just as giving food to the stomach nourishes the whole body, similarly, worshipping Krishna alone, then all of the demigods are satisfied. They're also nourished, you know. So it's and he goes on in this vein. Aham hi savayagyanam bhokta cha pavareva cha natumam abhijananti tatvenatas chavanti te. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Purport. Here it is clearly stated that there are many types of yajna performances recommended in the Vedic literatures, but actually all of them are meant for satisfying the Supreme Lord. Yajna means Vishnu. In the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that one should only work for satisfying Yajna or Vishnu. Who can quote the verse? Yagyartat karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhana. The perfectional form of human civilization, known as varnashram dharma, is specifically meant for satisfying Vishnu. Therefore, Krishna says in this verse, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices because I am the Supreme Master. Less intelligent persons, however, without knowing this fact, worship demigods for temporary benefit. Therefore, they fall down to material existence and do not achieve the desired goal of life. If, however, anyone has any material desire to be fulfilled, he had better pray for it to the Supreme Lord, although that is not pure devotion, and he will thus achieve the desired result. So, from every direction here, Krishna is discouraging the worship of the demigods and encouraging the worship of himself. And what was I thinking? There was another verse. Oh yeah, the perfection of varnashram dharma. You know, that comes in right in the 2nd chapter. Atak pumbir dvija shrestha varnashram vibhagasha swanustitasya dharmasya sangsidhir haritoshanam. That, he's speaking to the sutta speaking to the sages in Mahimashwaranya. Dvija shrestha. Varnashram vibhagasha, the divisions of the varna and ashrams. Varna is the social classes, which is like the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and the ashrams are the spiritual orders, Brahmachari and the Vanaprastha, Sannyasi, etc., like that, and Grahastha. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, let me just finish it first. So he says, Varnashram vibhaga su anustitasya. It's not svanustita, but it's su anustitasya. Means very nicely performed. You can perform all the duties in those varnas and ashrams. You're a Pakar, Kshatriya, and Brahman, whatever. But the perfection is, Dharma, Sangsid here, Haritoshanam, is that if Hari is satisfied. So the whole idea is to engender, by the Varna and Ashram, devotion to Krishna. That's the perfection of it. You know, otherwise it becomes a caste system and it's the Brahmins lording over everybody. You know, it doesn't work. Krishna has to be in the center. That way everyone is satisfied. And you can see, when devotees come together, you know, you get, it's in the movement for a while, you get certain status, this is, you know, you're this or that, this or that. But when you're in the kirtan, he said, oh, he's a Shudra kirtan performer. No, that's the total offense. Everybody's equal, right? Everyone is glorifying the Lord, and all of these artificial divisions are broken down if it's on the spiritual platform. So that's the wonder of Krishna consciousness is that, and I was reminded of that verse at the end of the 5th chapter, where Krishna said that Bhoktaram yagitapasam sarvaloka maheshwanam suridam sarvabhutanam gyartanam shantamrichyati. That I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Lord of all world, sarvaloka maheshwanam. But I am also the best friend of everyone within the heart. Suridam sarvabhutanam. This word surit, Prabhupada used it in his letters, your ever well-wisher. This is only the Supreme Lord can be the ever well-wisher of every living entity forever, So he's the joy of all the sacrifice, but he is our ever well-wisher. And one who understands all these points, then you attain real peace and happiness. Because your best friend is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, he has your best interest in mind and in heart at all times. And if we simply follow him, then we'll be blessed. So any questions? You had a comment or something?
Yeah, just a quick question. So when Krishna showed his universal form, there were other god and goddesses who were part of that. So Lord Vishnu was also the part of universal form?
I don't recall if Vishnu was there. Vishnu was, he's Krishna. He's plenary. Plenary means full, but he takes the role in maintenance of the universe. Just like Brahma creates and Vishnu maintains and Shiva destroys. So he's performing that role, but at the same time he has the Vishnus, the Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshina, all of these Vishnu. These are expansions of Krishna that he in which way he maintains and the whole universe, so that he's doing it through his surrogates, as it were, so that he's simply busy in Goloka Vrindavan, with the Leela, and that's really what the
So
whole
during the universal form, he was not there. I mean, when
I don't recall
he
it
was
being mentioned
emitting.
as
Yeah, I never heard that anywhere. So I thought, out of curiosity, I should ask.
Yeah.
Arjuna saw Lord Brahma from the lotus stem, and the source of the lotus stem is
It's Garbhodakshina Vishnu in that sense.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next one is another famous verse. A lot of these verses are quoted, and then 26 is super, quoted all the time. Yanti deva vrata devan, pitrin yanti patrivata, bhutanti yanti bhujeja, yanti madhyajinopi mam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. Purport. If one has any desire to go to the moon, the sun, or any other planet, one can attain the desired destination by following specific Vedic principles recommended for that purpose, such as the process technically known as Darsha Purnamasi. These are vividly described in the fruit of activities portion of the Vedas, which recommends a specific worship of demigods situated on different heavenly planets. Similarly, one can attain the Pita planets by performing a specific yajna. Similarly, one can go to many ghostly planets and become a yaksha, raksha, or pishacha. Pishacha worship is called black arts or black magic. There are many men who practice this black art, and they think that it is spiritualism, but such activities are completely materialistic. Similarly, a pure devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead only achieves the planets of Vaikuntha and Krishna Loka without a doubt. It is very easy to understand through this important verse that if by simply worshipping the demigods one can achieve the heavenly planets, or by worshipping the Pitas achieve the Pita planets, or by practicing the black arts achieve the ghostly planets, why can the pure devotee not achieve the planet of Krishna or Vishnu? Unfortunately, many people have no information of these sublime planets where Krishna and Vishnu live, and because they do not know of them, they fall down. Even the impersonalists fall down from the Brahma Jyoti. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore distributing sublime information to the entire human society, to the effect that by simply chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can become perfect in this life and go back home, back to Godhead. You can see why, someone reading this for the first time, after reading so much mundane stuff and finally reading this is, if you're qualified, it's like the most enlivening thing. I mean, we're hearing these stories. You know, people get books and they read, like Vijay. I read the whole thing in one day. This is what was. Another one was. Did you do that too? And another one was Keshava Bharati Maharaj tells how he also he got the Bhagavad Gita and he finished the whole thing in 3 days, and where's the nearest temple, you know. And other people look at it, I don't know about this, you know. Does it say that in the Bible? You know, I don't think I can read that, you know. So I mean, the whole Gita is like this, where by contrast, you know, Krishna is pointing out, don't go down this road because it's a dead end. This is a dead. Well, everything's a dead end except bhakti, really. Or let's say it's just a vicious circle rather than a dead end. You have hopes, you struggle for it, you may have some temporary success, but then the whole thing is dashed by the force of time. You know, and you lose your human life, and then 10,000 years go by finally you come back. You know, it's just there's no. The whole thing is the whole thing is like a big con job by Maya Devi. That's her job. It's to try to convince you that you can actually be happy and secure somehow in this life, in material life, by pleasing the senses. But throughout the books, this verse always comes to mind, is Shabdev. Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya pritaya apanoti. Such a revolutionary line, that one line. Certainly, it is certainly true that those whose lives are simply dedicated to sense gratification, he uses the exact words, it's not mysterious Sanskrit. Indriya priti means sense gratification, sense pleasure. When their lives are they're totally mad. Because by engaging in it, you're sure to perform sin, and you're sure to get another material body, and you're sure to suffer like anything. So you get a little bit of sense titillation and a whole lot of suffering. You know, that you invest all this energy in trying to please the senses, and you end up a lot of suffering. Whereas in Krishna consciousness, just a little energy, you know, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. The investment, if you put it in, it changes your whole being. The sense gratification becomes absurd, and you go back to Godhead. So what's the better investment? It's all a question of knowledge, a question of knowing it. If you don't know about this other means, then the only thing presented to you is the senses and all of this business. Then you're going to actually you have to strive in that way. People think that's all there is. That's my life, you know. But it's not. And so Prabhupada has come to give, and Krishna is giving again and again. Who you worship. You know what? Broaden the definition of worship for a minute. It's like, you know, it's always the political season, isn't it? In America, I mean, it never stops. You know, they're lamenting about the last election, and then when the next one is coming, they're eager for the. They're always raising money and spending, you know, lying and creating. You know,
Never fulfilling.
yeah, and always being unhappy. You know. So what is that? That's a form of worship. You're putting your attention, your hopes, your money, your physical and intellectual energy into pushing this person or yourself, isn't it? It's a kind of worship. A lot of it is self-worship, you know, all these people. But and are they ever fulfilled? I mean, I have always been a very politically aware person, especially when I was a kid. You know, I mean, kid means, you know, teens in my 20s, and. I was completely absorbed. You know, I used to read the New York Times every day since I was like 10 years old. You know, oh, follow this, and I remember I put so much hope in the anti-war movement. That was my religion. You know, when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, and I would go down to Washington. You know, at great expense. I never got arrested, thank God. But 100,000 people, you know, would go in and marching. You know, and then after all of that. You know, the 65, 66, 67, 68, and Nixon gets elected, and the war just becomes more. You know, he lied to the Vietnamese, said, "We're going to get a peace plan," you know, the whole thing. So my whole, you know, I worshipped the people who were, my attention, my efforts were all on this anti-war thing. So it was so frustrating. Because, I mean, come on. I mean, just to have a human being to see, it was like a crucifixion of these people. What did they ever do to the United States? And then you had this Laos, wasn't even our enemies. It was just they were just in the way. And we just bombed the heck out of them, and ruined their whole country, and even today. It's insanity. So that was I thought was the most important thing. That's what's really, But in spite of all the effort, it was foiled, and the war went on. Finally, it came to an end. I had been in the movement already in '74, I think, it ended. So, all that hope and all that faith, and it was a kind of worship. I put my life into it, but it was really foolish. It was frustrating in the end. And whatever you worship, I mean, here he says you worship the gods, you go to the gods. But we just read how that doesn't help you. You come back here eventually. You're not really progressing. You're still and then you run the risk of getting sucked into some sinful activity, losing the human form, and down you go into the species. And, just like a horrible existence, And then finally coming up the human form of life. Well, why waste this human form of life? We got it, It's like we won the lottery, now we have to just cash the ticket in. Chant Hare Krishna. And what's the point? So Krishna, in so many ways, he said, worship me, you come to me. But if whatever else you worship, you'll go there. You'll develop, because Sangha is so important. Sangha is everything. What you associate with, the thoughts that the people, the ideas, the atmosphere, the modes of nature, what you choose, and sometimes you lose that ability to choose. You're so much enthralled with whatever mode you're in, and that you think that's all there is. It's so easy to become enthralled and controlled by these objects of the senses, or so many different things. So it's so important to get good association and take shelter in good association. And actually, the books that we have, this is the greatest association. When we read the Bhagavad Gita, we are associating with Krishna, we're associating with Prabhupada, and we're associating with the commentators that Prabhupada relied on, to the Baladev Vidyabhushan. This is how as Prabhupada said, the body seva, the associated with the words of the acharya and charyas, is the best way to associate with them, is to listen and hear. Like when Rupa Goswami, I remember when Kushakrata Prabhu, I had the great good fortune of living in the same, practically next door to him, in 1977, 78. And he started translating, and he was kind of liberating these books, the books of Rupa Goswami, and he translated so many others. But at first he started translating the Stavamala. And I was fortunate enough to develop a taste for chanting the Sanskrit shlokas, and it was exquisite, beautiful verses about Krishna that he would liberate. And I remember, like, for instance, it says, Muktaharam dadududu chakrakaram saram gopi manasi marojaropi kopi kangse kalanakadambo tangse vangshe rangi dashitadatim nakshangi. I mean, it's a wonderful creation, You can chant it 10 times and you don't get tired, just like Hare Krishna. So what does he say? Muktaharam dadudu. He has this beautiful garland, pearl necklace, mukta, like a string of stars, like stars. Tadudu chakrakaram saram gopi manasi marojaropi. And he's rising in the hearts of the gopis. They love gopi manasi marojaropi. Kopi Kangse, he became very angry at Kamsa, the chief of all the demons. Kalanakadambo tangse vangshe rangi, he's delighting in playing on his flute. Dishatudating nakshangi. May he give us love for himself, that Shangi, he who carries the Shanga bow, But the way he puts it together, it's just a wonderful thing. And that's, that we have a flood of that. Our whole sampradaya is filled with these incredible writers, Srila Prabhupada, of course, but, Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. And so we can associate with them by hearing their books, by reading them and discussing them amongst each other, We're there when we read the Bhagavatam. We're there at Naimisharanya with Shukadeva Goswami and Purika Maharaj and Sutta Goswami. So we should take advantage of all these gifts we've been given and the opportunity of purifying our consciousness. I love this in the third canto, when Kapila Dev begins his instructions to his mother. Chapter 25, I think it starts at text 20. There's 8 verses about the importance of Sangha. He starts out, prasangam. Prasangam means very intense and meaningful, in this context, attachment. Sangha also means attachment. Prasangam madaram pasham atmana kabayo bedusa hesha sada shukato moksha dwaram apavitam. So there is a mundane affection or mundane attraction keeps us bound to birth and death infernal. But love for sadhus opens wide the doors to life eternal. In other words, moksha or liberation, going back to Godhead, depends on us willingly associating with the sadhus. And then, so then he said, well, who's a sadhu? Famous verse, Tatikshava Karunika Suridak Sarvadehina Majata Shattu Rakshanta Sadhavak Sadhabhushana. Sadhus are very tolerant, but at the same time very compassionate. Now that means that, Prabhupada would always give the example of Jesus Christ. He was so compassionate, so merciful, and he risked his own life to give God consciousness, but he was crucified. So, and Prabhupada, to come to America and undergo everything that he did, that's the symptom, is tolerance and great compassion for the fallen. Suridaksa, the friend of every living entity, not even just human beings, but every living entity. Prabhupada so much, emphasize cow protection and everything. Ajata Shatrava, having no enmity toward others. This idea of that having no enemy born, Yudhishthira had that. It means that people consider you an enemy, but you have no enemy. You have no enmity, and therefore you don't feel anyone as your enemy. Sadhavak Sadhabhushana, these are the ornaments of the sadhu. So he enjoins his mother to associate with them. So how do they get these qualities? Because there's no mention of bhakti there. And he says, Maya Ananye, so he's speaking of himself as the incarnation of Krishna. Maya Ananye Bhavanam Bhaktim Kurvanti Hedvidam. Matkutek Chakta Karmanas Chakta Swajana Bandhava. So by unwavering devotional service to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains these qualities of a sadhu. And what are the symptoms? For my sake, they'll give up any activity that they're attached to. And even if there are impediments, he'll give up association with his relatives and friends, which are, bad association, unless they're, helping you. And then what do they do? Marashya katamishta shinbanti katayanti cha tapandi vividastava naita mankata chetasa. That they're always hearing and chanting the nectarian vibrations about me. Marashya katamrishta. Mishta means very wonderful, attractive vibration. Shinbanti katayanti cha. And because they're always absorbed in hearing and chanting about me, remembering me, tapanti vividastava naita mankata chetasa. Their minds are so much focused on me, they're not even practically feeling the ordinary miseries of this world. Just like Prahlad Maharaj. He was so absorbed in thinking of Vishnu that even they threw him in a vat of oil, he didn't feel anything. Boiling oil to kill him, So then he joins his mother. You should associate with such sadhus, because by such association you will get rid of the effects of previous bad association. This comes up in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, Nirmana Moha Jita Sangha Dosha. You'll conquer over faults that have developed due to bad association by surrendering to me. Nirmana Moha Jita Sangha. And then comes the famous verse, Satam prasangan mama virya sambido bhavanti ritkana rasayana kata tajoshanarasu apavarga vartmani shraddha rati bhakta ranuka mishyati. By associating, and use the same word prasanga that he started it with, this prasanga, intense association with sadhus, what are you going to hear? You're going to hear talks about me. Mama virya sambido, conversation and vibrations about my glories. He's completely speaking as Krishna. And this is the medicine for birth and death, but it's not a bitter medicine, it's nectar for the ears and heart. Bhavanti ritkana rasayana kata tadjoshanat ashu. Very quickly, this system, which is the easiest form of yoga, he calls it in the next verse. I won't be able to go through the other two. Abhavarga Vartmani, the path of liberation. What do you develop? Shraddha, faith, more and more faith in the process in me. Rati, attraction, and finally bhakti, which means pure love for me. Step by step. So, what could be easier? This process of getting together, hearing, glorifying, and of course the essence of all of this sadhu sangha is sankirtan, congregational chanting. Hearing, the pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada chant and then repeating is the most powerful. But even we can do it, and become pure. So anyway, that's available to us, and to make this human life successful. And this is, where is Krishna present? He says, Naham tishnami vaikunte. I think he's speaking to Narada. I'm not present in Vaikuntha, he says. Naham tishnami vaikunte. Yoginam vidiyeshu va. I'm not present in the hearts of the yogis meditating. Yatra gayanti madbhakta tatra tishtami Narada. Wherever my devotees are glorifying me, that's where I stay. That's where I'm most present. So it's up to us. Do we want to associate with Krishna? Then absorb ourselves in hearing and chanting with devotees. Hare Krishna. Sorry to kind of get so carried away. Any questions, comments? We have time for a little poem. So, this is a meditation. It was inspired by a painting, which you may have seen, where Krishna's out in the forest. He's sitting on a rock. Very, very beautiful. And there's a little dove on his hand. There's a swan there. I think a deer and a cow. And it's a very idyllic scene. So, how does it go? The sweetness of Sri Krishna's form beguiles. Still sweeter is his face like autumn moon, but sweeter than the sweetest is his smile. His luscious beauty makes the gopis swoon. Govinda's beauty captivates the doves, the swans, the deer, the cows, and every tree. Indeed, in Braja, every creature loves Sri Krishna and is drowned in ecstasy. That all-enchanting land is paradise, our home, where we may dwell eternally. Most welcome there are those who pay the price to learn to love Sri Krishna perfectly. Hare Krishna. Oh, we have time for one more. Short one. I was remembering this one today. This is a prayer to have Krishna's lotus face, the lotus of his face growing in the lake of the heart eternally. Smita duchi makadandas yandivatrara vindam tavaputa padahangsam vishtagandham mukunda viduchata pushupali netra saranga rangam mamadidiyata dage sangamangi karotu. From the lotus of your face, dear Lord, trickles forth the luscious nectar of the beauty of your smile. Your exalted devotees, great swans, seek the fragrance of that lotus, which as air their hearts beguile. Your beloved gopis' eyes, mad bees, taste the most exquisite pleasure in that lotus of your face. Oh, my dear Mukunda Dev, I pray, may the lake of my poor heart be by that lotus ever graced. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare.